The summer of '89 was the Red Arrow's 25th season, and it was a proud silver jubilee year for them. The man at the sharp end is squadron leader Tim Miller, variously known as Red 1, Red Leader, or to the rest of the Arrows, just Boss. 25 years ago, it was Lee Jones.
It actually started in the gents' toilet at RAF Hornchurch, when a marvellous chap called Air Marshal Batchiachley, who was a great stunt pilot, mustn't say stunt, aerobatic pilot between the wars. And Batchy was standing alongside me, and we were communing, and he said, "Young Jones, I think you ought to get a team going." Because at this time I was on a ground tour at Hornchurch, selecting Neddies to be pilots, you know. And he said, "We've got this new aircraft coming in called the Nat, which was coming into service as a training aircraft." So we started getting a team together. He'd spoken to me in about 61, 62, and round about 64, we got the team together, and it was a jolly good little team. They were painted sort of lime yellow, and so we call them the Yellow Jacks because that was a call sign, a radio call sign. And from that team, I was then told, "Okay, you'll be going down to Little Rissington next year to form the RAF team."
Flying high and handsome, the Red Arrows of the Royal Air Force set the scene and mood for the Farnborough Air Show, shop window of the British aircraft industry, which this year is rocketing towards a record £200 million export scoop.
Some things haven't changed in the Arrow's first quarter century. Now as then, it's a full-time job. No sooner has the display season ended, then they start getting ready for the next one. And it's then, in October, that the biggest change happens, because the team is never the same from one year to the next. At the end of each season, 3 team members complete a 3-year stint and move on to other things. And in the autumnal gloom at the Red Arrow's base at Scampton, just outside Lincoln, there are 3 newcomers.
Beginning of October, welcome. First day on the Red Arrows. In 6 months' time, all being well, we will do our first display. So obviously between now and then, you will do something in the region of 300 practice sorties before we actually display in front of the public. We obviously don't throw you straight into the 9 ship, as you know, to begin with. We'll fly a 2 ship, then a 3, then a 4, then we'll add on 5, 6. And by Christmas, I hope to be flying around about 7 aircraft, there or thereabouts.
Well, in the air, I lead all the formation, all the displays, all the transit sorties. Which is rather nice. There's no other position in the Air Force where the boss leads every sortie. And on the ground, I'm the officer commanding of the Red Arrows, so I have to run the administration side, the engineering side of everything you see in this hangar.
Of course, these new boys are not exactly wet behind the ears. Each of them has served on a frontline squadron and been an instructor. Flight Lieutenant Martin Cliff, in the centre, has flown the Harrier on 2 squadrons in Germany. He's the new Red 3 and will fly just to the left of Red Leader. It's a new challenge for him.
It's a pure flying job, and I would say that if you ask most pilots, it's just simply one of the jobs that they would like to do. Very enjoyable, and myself personally, I know a lot of people who have flown in the Arrows before, and they've always said that it's a very satisfying job, so that was it, and I wanted to do it.
In the mirror image position to the right of the leader is the new Red 2, Flight Lieutenant Al Hoy. He used to fly the Jaguar fighter bombers in Germany.
I think initially, just flying in close formation as close to the ground as we do obviously on displays, that's a little bit of a shock. Also moving around the formation, although it's I don't have to do that too much, but a couple of times I have to move right to the back of the formation and flying in a position rearwards in the formation, but still looking at the boss at the front and ignoring the guys around you. That's quite difficult initially.
And then there's the new Red 9.
Well, basically it was sort of almost like the one thing left that I wanted to do in the Air Force. I'd flown a single-seat ground attack aircraft in Central Europe. I'd done an instructing role, and really, apart from being an air defender, the last challenge was to do formation aerobatics, and this is the only outfit in the Air Force at which you can do it.
So, before Christmas, they're already up to 6 out of the full 9, with some odd part formations. It's hard work for the newcomers, with up to 3 practice flights a day. 2 and 3 are on either side of the leader, and John Newton, red 9, is the one with the smoke at the back, behind red 3. You may notice they haven't all got the regular Red Arrows aeroplanes. The ones with the white tops are replacements, borrowed from elsewhere, while the others get major servicings.
I'm Jeff Glover, squadron leader, in my second year in the team, and I'm this year's deputy leader. I'm Red 8, and in fact I was Red 8 last year. It's quite an exciting position. It's an all-action position, very often operating 3 out, 3 away from the leader at the back of the formation. So it's often quite busy. You always have people around you. And the aim of the game is to formate off the leader and try to ignore what the people around you are doing and make sure that you yourself are holding your position.
Every single formation flight they make is videoed from the ground by a full-time RAF cameraman. Afterwards, they pick over and analyse each other's performances.
6 fraction long, maybe?
Yeah.
We're talking of a foot or 2.
I mean, you're in the right place. But Newts, you've got a bit of rudder on there, you see? Again. Yeah. Trying to avoid...
You shouldn't need rudder there.
It looks like you stepped into the formation a little bit. You've got a bit of, whatever, right boot.
Meanwhile, number 2 has slid off to the right.
But nobody noticed.
No, we do.
Behave.
Okay, so Cliffy is not going to be as tight, yeah? And Newts, you're going to fly the aeroplane straight.
Yeah.
Basically.
A bit radical.
I'm Flight Lieutenant Guy Bancroft-Wilson. I've been in the Red Arrows 2 years now, and this year, my last year, flying number 4. And as you know, each year we change, so I was number 9 the first year, number 2 last year, and moving up to number 4 this year. Well, I'm on the outside right, so I've got to ignore the guys between myself and the leader and try and fly smoothly and keep the position. I've got a lot of moving around as well, which is quite a good, interesting slot to fly. I move backwards and forwards a lot, changing formations. Each position is so different to the other positions, which is why we haven't got a reserve pilot, because you can't have one guy learning all the different peculiarities of each position. So it takes, a few months to learn each position, that's for sure.
My name's Dominic Riley. My second year in the team. Last year I flew the 3 slot next to the leader on the left. This year I'm flying the 5 slot, which is one further out than that. A bit more exciting, a bit more movement. Well, the only things we have to fly are the stick, the control column, and the throttle. Those are our main controls. And all we do is basically look out of the window at either the boss or somebody else in the formation who's going to be the most stable depending on what shape we're flying. And you wiggle the stick around and thrash the throttle around to maintain the position that you agreed on through training.
If there are any Red Arrows who are perhaps more special, it's these two, the synchro pair.
Certainly before I joined, I had a certain impression of what the job was. Until you actually fly with the team, you'll never know. I mean, my first trip with the team, I was petrified. I've never seen so much hardware so close to me, actually doing incredible things. And I went home, having done 2 days with the team, coming for selection, and I said to my wife, there's just no way I could do that. I mean, it was just mind-blowing. I just sort of fell asleep on the sofa. I'd had a couple of beers and that was it. I just sitting in the back.
Synchro 2 is Flight Lieutenant Steve Johnson. He will automatically become the synchro leader next year when John Rands leaves.
Synchro pair split off in the second half of the show, led by number 6, and the aim is to sort of make the show a bit more dynamic and have a little more action in, so that we sort of split the show up and have head-to-head passes in the second half. And really the role is there to just add a bit of spice to the actual display itself.
So there they all are, all 9 arrows, by now a team, able to relax together, but always with that combative air, always sparring and joshing each other.
Conquer, laughing my head off, go back and conquer, and the stick was going, oh my God.
It's not easy, is it?
You transfer straight to the boss.
Yeah, look, the whole thing at the boss. Don't look anywhere else, too frightened looking at it.
Yeah, can I see how close the wings are?
Briefing! Of course, as well as the debrief after each sortie, there's always a thorough pre-flight briefing before they take off. Today is a particularly special occasion.
Okay, good afternoon. First 9 ship then. Yo. The boss. Right. Runway 23, the aids are serviceable, 230-12, all crowd left, down the strip, and 280-20, which is crowd left on crowd at height. It's because it's our first 9, we're back up to 500 feet again. Makes no difference to you on the wing there. Start taxi takeoff. Taxi is a 9, and we will do a display takeoff. Last one was a little bit stretchy, okay? In there this time. And I'll bend it right, reverse left for diamond bend. And then we'll now fly full first half. Now, for the 3 new chaps who haven't done this before, the things you'll find, no big deal about it at all. There's nobody really watching us. It's not a proper display. It's just a practice like any other practice. And if you do make a minor error, don't let it affect you for the rest of the sortie, okay? This is the first 9 ship. I don't expect it to be immaculate. Enjoy it.
Captain, good morning. Red Arrows taxi.
Red Arrows, good morning. Taxi for 23 right hand, QFE 1026. The surface wind west of the 8 knots. 2,000 foot wind, 33020.
This is a big day, not only for the new boys, but also for the team. It's actually the first time the Red Arrows have flown all 9 aircraft together since the middle of the previous season. Then an accident on takeoff caused one pilot to eject. He was slightly injured, and it was too late to replace him.
Red Arrows take off. Smoke, lights on, go, park, parking brakes. Threads, rolling, now.
That was what Tim Miller called the display takeoff. The first 5 take off, with 3 of them in a V in the center of the runway, and the other 2 a little bit back on the edges, and then the remaining 4 follow a few seconds later. That 4, sometimes called Jippo, now have to catch up with the front 5.
Turn. Jippo, air brake, go.
Incidentally, those zigzag lines are a miniature detonation cord. If the pilot has to eject, that shatters the canopy with a little explosion just before the ejector seat reaches it.
Come on, JR, get it in. Go on, sir, go on. Smoke off, go. All aboard.
All aboard, and there it is. The basic Diamond 9 that all the other shapes stem from. Soon, Reds 8 and 9 move out to make a new shape, 9 Arrow.
Make it Vixen. Go. 6, 7. Pulling up. There we go. Smoke on. Go.
Another shape they can try out for the first time is the rather obscurely named Big Vixen. And not only try out the shape, they also do a roll in Big Vixen. It's particularly difficult to keep the formation from bending and flexing in a roll like this. So altogether, a good effort for a first go.
Well, from the team's point of view, it's quite a hurdle, really. We've been working all winter to get the 9 up. For the new chaps in particular, it's quite a sort of psychological milestone. And personally, it's been a while since we've flown 9, and we're all feeling very good about it.
No, it wasn't that good.
But hang on, it looks as if the boss was having them on when he said there'd be no one watching. It rather seems as if this particular milestone deserves a spot of family celebration.
I don't think you saw it. Oh, we'll get this one.
There's some more there, I'm afraid. Is it on the shelf?
No. Boys don't deserve it after that. Any way to finish your day. Alcohol-free. Thank you, boss.
At least you can see my aeroplane easy now.
From today, the Arrows will always fly as a team of 9. But there is one other.
I am Red 10, the 10th member of the Red Arrows, officially the manager of the team, and as such a non-flying member. You won't see me in the sky during the shows in the summertime. The team actually needs a manager because there is a lot more involved than just having 9 aircraft displaying. Clearly a team that is a full-time aerobatic display team needs a certain amount of organisation to go on behind the scenes. The back looks fine. Yeah, the back is fine. All the zips will be covered like last year. You'll get your red stitching. This is not the original material anyway. Remember, mine anyway was too tight because when they took the second measurements, they took 2 inches out of the back length, which they did to all of us, which they've now put back. Not in this suit.
Ever thought of being a male model?
Thanks, boss.
Don't give up your day job, man.
But life isn't all glamour and fun. Arrows are not allowed to forget that in wartime, the team would become an operational squadron with air defense missiles on their repainted and camouflaged aircraft. First and foremost, they're professional Air Force pilots.
Right, what we'll do then on this sortie, it's just pure GH for you. Aiming to just look at things that you might not do when you're there with the rest of the team all around you during the summer.
Okay.
But what I'll do is tell you how to fly, or roughly what manoeuvres to fly next. And I shall give you various emergencies all the way through.
Okay.
And what I'm looking for is either a safe forced landing without endangering anybody else or the crowd, or equally importantly, if you can't make it, pointing the airplane in a safe direction such that it doesn't damage anybody or anything, and a safe ejection by you, or simulated safe ejection.
Right. The reason for my visit to the Red Arrows this week is to, first of all, fly with all the pilots and to check that their pure flying skills, their navigation, their instrument flying, and their knowledge of aircraft systems and the conduct of practice emergency drills is up to scratch. And really, I'm here to provide the leader of the Red Arrows with an independent quality control check on his pilots to make sure that all those basic skills, which are so important to a military fast jet pilot, have not been eroded during this intensive aerobatic practice. I may say that this is very similar to the sort of checks and quality control we do on all other RAF pilots, certainly throughout Sport Command. So there's nothing special in this. Every outfit in the RAF has to go through this sort of quality control check, usually once every 18 months.
Okay, the gear comes up now, gear up, lead the flap at mid, smoke goes off and we turn right through about 20 degrees.
Okay, as you put the power on.
Power on and smoke on.
Simulated engine seizure.
Okay, clear the formation first of all, make sure the air brake is in, throttle fin back to idle, it's obviously seizure, so all the way back to HV off, LP off, fuel pump off, looking for a low key. Make sure I am clear of the formation I am now. And low key for 05 and going for energy is still very low. I'm not going to make it obviously, so I'm going to turn to the right here, aim for that big clear area over there and eject now.
Okay, fine.
Our show has been designed with safety in mind. So for instance, when we do dynamic formation changes, we always do them away from the crowd. That is one of the reasons we arrive crowd rear. So although we fly over the crowd, we're in a very stable, safe platform. It's, similar to a jumbo jet over the middle of London. But when we actually pull up into loop and do a formation change, that is going away from the crowd. For instance, on a seaside site, that would be going out to sea.
No matter how many times they're reminded that they're ordinary Air Force pilots, the Arrows know their job is different. These are some of the entries for a 25th anniversary picture competition that they had to judge.
Did he?
Yeah.
Can't believe he was too busy.
But his wasn't bad.
Each year, it's no exaggeration to say that they autograph tens of thousands of pictures, posters, programs, booklets. And this year, they had more than 4,000 visitors to their headquarters at Scampton. But meanwhile, the Lincolnshire winter has set in, and the weather is stopping them practicing. So every year at this time, the team decamps to Cyprus and guaranteed good weather. Poor chaps. Just to show how sad they are, their arrival is typically flamboyant.
Straight. Left. 1 right. 2 right. 3 right. 4 right. 5 left.
For sort of 4.5 months, we've been coming to work at 8, we've been going home at 5 or 6 or so. Here, we are all living together and socialising together, and I think this is where, traditionally, the team gels.
Yes, you can practically see them gelling, can't you? Perhaps it's encouraging that there's something they're not awfully good at. Ah, this looks a bit better. I knew we could rely on Guy Bancroft Wilson. And they seem to be turning into the pink arrows before our very eyes. In fact, I should think the cool of morning comes as quite a relief.
Right, the weather, as you see, it's a lovely clear morning, variable at 2,000 feet, less than 5 knots, I'm told by Mr. Riley. We're on runway 28, we'll land on runway 10.
Changed volleyball time, haven't they?
Most of the Red Arrows don't have a lot of influence on the maneuvers that the team does. The synchro pair are the exception.
During the first half, the synchro fly directly behind the boss, and our main job during the first half, all we do is just alter what we call the lengths of the stem. That's the 3 aircraft that we actually, fly in the centre of the formation outside.
Really, the job of the particularly synchro lead is to be as smooth as you possibly can, particularly in the Concorde formation where the sides go back right to the back. The guys are right off the back there, and it's very difficult to actually get a decent reference off the leader, so they're actually flying off him. So it's quite important for 6 and 7 to maintain their accurate positions.
At the start of the second half, the main formation's called into leader's benefit, and then we're just in line astern behind the boss, and we lengthen a little bit, probably 50 yards, say, and once the boss will actually get us out running on what we call the 90, running towards the crowd, nicely positioned, it will call synchro split, and then off we go. And then once I hit the vertical, and using the aircraft instruments for this and looking outside, I call split. And I split left through 90, and Joss splits 180 degrees off me in the vertical. He gives it a couple of bananas, 1 banana, 2 banana, and round we go. And it's full power on the light nibble, what we call max rating the aeroplane. At the same time, we've actually pushed the red smoke button.
That's really the opening of the second half, really, that is.
A height of 11,000 feet gives you this unique view of the heart, with one of the ventricles, if you like, off to the right, and the thicker smoke trail coming from the main formation as they do the cascade. And that's the cue for the synchro pair to start their separate act. From now on, they will alternate with the maneuvers of the main formation.
Check! There we go. Tag! Over the top. Something I'm making. What's I got? Oh, stacks are high. Okay. I like a bit of flexor heavyweight jet.
We get back together and then come in for pairs inverted pass, which is something new we put in this year, isn't it?
Yeah. In fact, I think it was Joss who was very, very keen to actually have a go at this, and I just do the inverted down the runway, and Joss's job, once I'm actually in there and steady platform, is to actually roll and invert on top. I don't know how he does it personally because I've spent so much time looking at the ground, but apparently he ignores the ground. He could probably tell me more about it. Yeah. I'd love to see it from his cockpit. I lie.
It's quite a difficult manoeuvre. We sort of thought this up because we wanted a manoeuvre that was fairly quick but something reasonably spectacular. I figured that we could probably fly upside down in line astern around about the same distance as we do in the diamond, which is what, about 10 feet? Maybe that, something like that, maybe 12.
I love it.
When you're flying over a runway a lot, you tend to use the line and the ground a great deal and use that to orientate yourself against him and maybe not watch him so much. And what happens is as soon as you go over the sea or over an airfield where there's no tarmac or anything, then as soon as you start to roll, of course, the picture is completely different. So the actual technique I use is to really look out the front a great deal more and actually concentrate on John.
Out the back, over the sea, in and out of various formations. Any problems there?
I felt the first half went reasonably well until the Eagle Apollo. I just flied a little bit too tight, and we ended up having a really quite a tight descending bend. Did we hang on to that? Or was it hard work? It was hard work. Was it? Okay, let's look at it.
That's not all that was hard work on this occasion. Watch Red 3 carefully. He's the one immediately to the left of the center spine. Again, see how Red 3's sudden avoiding action causes Red 5 on his left and slightly behind to swing out to the left. Actually, it's not quite as bad as it looks, because they are at slightly different heights relative to each other. Red 3 is Martin Cliff.
My aim on this tour really is to get through quietly without any interesting moments in terms of flying, just, as I say, get on with the job and do it. A couple of small things have happened, but nothing that I've not been able to cope with. Getting a little close sometimes, maybe, in the formation, but we've carefully briefed on what to do when that happens, and the brief works.
Eagle loop, Eagle itself was good, but I pulled it up too close to date, and therefore we had this worker for Apollo, so I'll take a slap for that.
One of the qualifications for being an arrow seems to be a certain fanaticism for golf, although, as with their other sporting activities, they play refreshingly badly.
Not a good shot.
Good shot. Oh, okay. Oh, no. Okay. Take trouble. Take trouble.
Don't show the result of that, please.
Oh, Miller.
The social scene continues. The station commander at RAF Akrotiri is Group Captain Brian Hoskins. He's an ex-Arrow himself, and in fact, he was Red Leader from 1979 to 1981.
Ladies and gentlemen, lunch is served.
When Brian Hoskins was an ordinary member of the Red Arrows, they were flying the Gnat. He remembers it with affection.
It's like the favourite car that you've ever had. There is something that you cannot absolutely identify. I think it's something to do with the sitting position and the all-round visibility and being very low. It's a very low aeroplane. You know, as you taxi, you're quite low to the ground. And I think it's just that, the sitting position and just the feel of the aeroplane.
Bill Loverseed, who was an ex-CFS NAT instructor, was an absolute ace on things that went on the inside of the aeroplane that most pilots aren't awfully interested in. And so if we ever had a problem, we say, "What is it, Bill?" And he'd come up and say, "Oh, it's this particular fuse and that particular fuse." And one day he said, "You know, if we pull fuse 13 out, we could get a marvellous rate of roll." The rate of roll, of course, you know, is this way. And on the NAT, it was pretty fast, the rate of roll, you see. But if you pull this little fuse out, it's just like an electric fuse, you know, this put something into the system, and holy woof, it went round. So we went up this day and we pulled the fuses, and I said, "Back off," and they all backed off, and I took the stick and I said, "1, 2, 3, go." You see? So I thought, God, it's true. Come in, Henry, come in, Bill, come in, Jerry. And they came into very close, about 200 yards. Rolling, go, and we did it. Marvellous. So a bit closer, bit closer. In the end, we were doing twinkle rolls in formation. Now, nobody did this. Nobody did this with this rate of roll, and it was fabulous. So we got Birdie Wilson, Air Marshal, Bird Wilson, and we said, "Could you have a look at this, sir?" See? So he knew a thing or two, and he had a look at it, and he said, "Fantastic. What did you do?" So I said, "Well, just skill, really, sir." So he said, And of course, after a while, they caught on to what was happening, you see. And so they said, "You can't do that, because the girls at Boscombe Down, the test pilots, will have to take 1.5 years to check it out, you know. I mean, they're overpaid, high-priced help. And they'd have to check it out. We couldn't finish it by the end of the season." So we thought, right, so the order was replace the fuses immediately. What they didn't say was to replace them serviceable. So we got old Bill to blow all the fuses and we put them back home.
Although the aficionados of the Nat would never agree, the British Aerospace Hawk is a worthy successor. Like the Nat, it has a single engine, and it's a two-seat advanced trainer, although in most Red Arrow's display flying, there's only one person on board. So in these idyllic conditions, the Arrows continue their training for 3 weeks. Although there's usually only one person on board during display flights, one of the exceptions to that rule is when the pilots are being checked. And in this case, the team are being checked by a senior officer from Support Command. It's his job to recommend to his boss, the Commander-in-Chief, that the Arrows have achieved the required standard to be the Royal Air Force aerobatic team for 1989, or not, as the case may be. It's a nervous time for the pilot. So, Air Vice Marshal Mike Pilkington, Air Officer Commanding Training Units, has their undivided attention when he starts to speak.
I've seen enough now in the time I've been here and the show I saw at Skempton. And now I've flown with you. I've seen quite enough to be confident that you're fit to go public. So what I shall be saying to the CNC is that here you are, boss, watch the show, but I'm confident that the team are ready.
There's a certain symbolism here, because it's not until the AOC has given his blessing that they get those individually tailored and beautifully modelled red flying suits.
I think the general image amongst other pilots in the Air Force of the Arrows is that there are a bunch of posers who wear red suits and swan around the place, and that the flying is probably reasonably easy. And I think that, and I'm sure the other new guys would agree, that what we've seen is that okay, there is a bit of posing to be had, but basically the flying is a lot harder than you expect, and I think you earn the posing that you get because it is hard work.
There's no business like show business, like no business I know. Everything about it is appealing, everything the traffic will allow. Nowhere could you get that happy feeling when you are stealing that extra bow. There's no people like show people. They smile when they are low. Yesterday they told you you would not go far. That night you opened and there you are. Next day on your dressing room they've hung a star. Let's go on with the show.
The Air Marshal's recommendation is, of course, a serious matter. The Ministry of Defence says the Red Arrows cost £13.5 million a year. They justify the expenditure by pointing to extra recruiting for the Air Force and extra overseas sales for the Hawk. And as the Arrow's dreams harden into reality, they also have to consider the thorny problem of safety at air displays.
The actual training this year has gone very smoothly, but as you're aware, with the aftermath of Ramstein last year, we were slightly branded with the same tar brush, and there have been a lot of political pressures on us, but fortunately we've had good support, and here we are still.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it gives me very great pleasure to present to you the 1989 Royal Air Force aerobatic team, the Red Arrows.
Between May and the following October, they'll go on to do 101 displays. They had planned to do 121, but 10 will get cancelled because of the weather, and another 10 because of what they call organizational or operational reasons. The good feelings Tim Miller had about the training period were to continue into their 25th display season, and there were to be no accidents. After the Ramstein disaster with the Italian national team in 1988, airshow safety regulations had been tightened up all round, but the Arrows 1989 show seemed as exciting as ever, with few noticeable changes. Of course, a Silver Jubilee year calls for some special celebrations, which in the case of the armed services usually means a royal visit. The Red Arrows are lucky because they're part of the Central Flying School, and the Central Flying School has the Queen Mother as its Commandant-in-Chief. So, all spruced up in proper blue uniforms this time, they nervously wait and get their ties straightened while they're about it.
I did myself this morning. I led that thing last night on the Royal Marines. Brilliant. Yeah, we take these.
Oddly, 1989 wasn't one of the years when the Arrows spent much time overseas. They did do displays in Cyprus, Gibraltar, Norway, Belgium and Switzerland, but that's nothing compared with 1986, for instance, when they gave 22 displays in 15 countries on one tour alone. But at least they had the royal visit, and in fact they met the Queen Mother again in November, when she named a new British rail locomotive the Red Arrows. But finally, the lure of the red suits proves too much for everyone, and this must surely be the ultimate pose of the year. While the flags and bunting are being rolled up and put away for the next royal visit, the Red Hawks are ready and waiting for the next display. In the high season of July, August and September, they don't have to wait long. When they're traveling around the shows, it's clearly impossible for them to carry all their ground support people and kit with them, although on transit flights, the elite circus of 9 ground crew do travel in the Hawks. But the rest and the equipment sometimes go by Strike Command Hercules transport aircraft.
Hi, sir. Hi. John Williams, engineering officer. Just say, if you want to go upstairs, a cup of coffee, flight planning, etc.
Rotate.
This particular trip was a typical midsummer piece of scheduling, taking in much of the West Country between Wednesday and Sunday at the end of July. By the weekend, it was getting quite hectic.
Well, this weekend we got quite an extended push, operating out of 3 different operating bases over 4 days. If we had our normal road support, it would mean that the ground crew would then spend 6 to 7 hours travelling between different operating bases. That would be unacceptable because they'd be then too tired to do their job.
Of course, each rival requires the full attention of the ground crew. They become famous for the disciplined way in which they marshal the aircraft in and out. Between the 26th and the 30th of July, the Arrows performed 9 full displays and 3 flypasts. On top of that, they made several positioning flights. For each of those sorties, the ground crew had to go through the full before and after flight servicing and refueling procedures. But the pilots aren't taking it easy between shows either. This is the job that all the mechanics hate, refilling the tanks with the dyed diesel fuel that makes the coloured smoke.
Fucking red!
You'll remember, they don't have a spare pilot because no one could learn all the routines for the different positions. But when they go on these extended trips, the team manager flies the 10th Hawk in case they need a spare aeroplane. This weekend, it's a good thing they do have Red 10's aircraft.
We've got a piston leaking on this brake unit, so we're just going to take the whole thing off, put a complete new unit on, and that'll fix the leaking piston back at Scampton when we get back.
Because, of course, the show must go on.
Welcome, please, the Red Arrows. The synchro pair now smoking red as they describe the outline of a heart, while the main section dives right through the middle before fanning out in the cascade.
You look out for the breach, you can see Christmas Squadron starting their run, and 151 Squadron screaming round behind them to pick up their formation position. S3.
The team manager, squadron leader Andy Stewart, now with his commentator's hat on, made 7 helicopter flights between the various displays, and he also had to be delivered once at high speed by the police. For the pilots, the wing of a Hawk becomes the briefing room.
Base weather here, 287 knots, 30 k's nil, 2 at 2300, 1024, runway 28, Tacanis, US.
Now we do quite a few coastal sites during the year, and clearly I cannot get there by Hawk aircraft. As there's no landing strip, nor can I get there with the Bulldog, the light propeller aircraft, which I would also use on such occasions. So really the helicopter is my only means of transport. It being a coastal site, there is no information that would normally be available had we been displaying at an airfield. So I'll assess the wind for him, check the QFE, that is the pressure setting that he needs to put on his altimeter, and get a reasonable feel whether there are any unusual obstacles that could not be predicted the months in advance when we last spoke to display organisers. I'm now orientating a photograph I have of the display site as we come in, and we take the pilot's eye view now that the team leader will see when he brings the rest of the team in. Now bearing in mind this is a site with no straight features on the coast, and every other display we've been doing has been up and down a runway. We're flying here in the helicopter the exact line that the Red Arrows will be taking, and I can get a really good appreciation. For example, in front of us we have some fairly large cliffs. Large, that is, when you're cleared as a synchro pair are down to 100 feet above the sea during their display. I'm looking here now on the map to a line for the team leader. He's got to have something that he can say when he flies in for the first time this afternoon. That is datum, in other words, that is the middle of the display line. Datum is the Bay Hotel, which is a large red tiled roof, and it's a buff-coloured house, and it sticks out with trees behind it.
Meanwhile, the aeroplanes are nearly ready for the next show. and Andy Stewart has leapt out of his helicopter to do his famous Anneka Rice impression.
Would you go in the Volvo with my son? He has been waiting to go for weeks because my father has been organised.
All right.
Oh, thank you so much.
Great pleasure.
The countdown is on. The Arrows have a reputation for arriving to the second.
Tim. Yeah, just arrived down at Lyme Regis. Look, I'm at the school, so we're not actually down yet at the seafront. However, I've done a quick survey in the helicopter.
About 3 minutes.
And 1022 is the QFE. Yep, 22. The wind is negligible, light and variable looking at the wave tops. And I'll update that as soon as I get down to the front. And for Datum, Tim, Datum is a hotel, the Bay Hotel. It's the only one. It's cream coloured on the front, red tiled roof, which stands out well from display height against the trees.
Okay, mate. Lovely. We'll be...
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we are. We'll see you at 2 o'clock. Okay. Right, bye.
In the press, I said last year we washed out, this year we baked out.
That's why we're looking forward to being here.
And you got the biggest
waving
pool.
up there.
Oh, you got the main attraction of the week, so we're
Hello,
grateful.
Hello. Hi, how are you, Lou? Nice to see you.
This is David Duncan-Anderson, David, the PA man of our week.
Do this for a couple of minutes, John, and then I'm going to have to start the commentary. I can do that one for you, my dear. No problem at all. I'm afraid I'm the only red arrow you're going to see today.
Well, in the flesh, anyway. As Andy does his stuff at Lyme Regis, the team is taking off from Exeter Airport. Lyme Regis is one of the many venues where the team can't land and meet the public, but Andy Stewart is doing his best.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and a very warm welcome from the Royal Air Force Aerobatic team. Thank you very much indeed. It's our very great pleasure to be with you this afternoon at this very attractive site.
Attractive it may be, but his communications aren't working too well, and he can't hear Tim Miller. Oh well, let's just hope they're on time.
Just give me a bit of space, please, kids.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you the Royal Air Force Aerobatic team for 1989, the Red Arrows.
They are.
And pulling up. Diamond, go. Diamond.
Maybe it was the good summer, maybe it was good luck, or maybe it was just solid hard work and professionalism.
I would be as bold to say as I think, as regards balanced characters, this, the 1989 team, has probably been the best to date that I've flown with.
So as the season ends and 3 team members prepare to leave, the question arises, what is there for an ex-Red Arrow to do? Well, they don't have a great history of rising through the RAF career structure, and many of them leave the service. But this year, for a change, all 3 are staying in. Squadron leader Jeff Glover, for instance, is going to fly Harriers, but he's sad to leave.
The first 8 weeks, February and March of '88, while I was flying 3 and 4 trips a day, to get up to, you know, as good as the rest of the guys who'd started a couple of months earlier, it was just the hardest working period of my life, I guess.
And as the 7 cascade through the heart left by the Synchro pair, you can just see it there. Remember that Synchro 2, Steve Johnson, will be Synchro lead next year and that he chooses his number 2. Well, he's chosen one of this year's new boys, Red 9, John Newton.
Well, next year I'm going into the synchro pair, so I mean that's really anybody who joins the Arrows, they want to do that, and I'm just lucky enough out of the 3 of us to be picked for that slot.
Andy Stewart, the manager, is staying on, probably for another 2 seasons. Does he ever feel overshadowed by the star quality of the 9?
There are times when I'm the only tangible asset to the Reds. They've seen the guys in the sky, and they take out on me their sort of affection for the pilots. And I'm delighted to help, but I'm always very conscious that the stars of the show are the 9 pilots, without a doubt.
Well, they've been stars for 25 years now. So let's leave the last word with the first Red Arrow, Lee Jones.
A lot of aerobatic chaps don't go on to become part of their airships because they would find the remainder of their life, I'm getting into dodgy ground here, would be dreadfully dull. I mean, you've been in the Arrows, what else is there?